Hello guys and welcome back to this channel. This is the Eradicator, and in this video, well, we are not really going to eradicate anything. We're going to talk about a movie, maybe the movie of the end of this year. We're going to be talking about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which is the last episode of the so-called Skywalker saga, which in my opinion is just a marketing term invented by Disney out there. But anyway, yeah, this is the Star Wars episode that concludes this whole journey that started for me when I think I was about 7 years old when I discovered Star Wars. It was my mom who introduced me to the saga. I fell in love with it almost immediately. Loved it very much. Loved anything related to space, travel, those spaceships, those battles, lightsaber battles, those aliens. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. And I've always been a huge Star Wars fan until The Last Jedi, which severely hindered my my enthusiasm for the saga. And I thought, if this is the direction that we're going to with Disney Star Wars, all these identity politics, those social justice themes, which I believe should have absolutely no place to do in any storytelling, in my opinion. And obviously, I was really following the so-called movements of the Phantom Menace, which I do consider, I want to believe that I am a part of. And so as you might have imagined, as you may imagine by now, I seriously disliked The Last Jedi. In fact, when I saw Broom Boy at the end of The Last Jedi, I actually walked out of the cinema. I didn't know it was the end of the movie, but I walked out of the cinema when I saw Broom Boy at at the end of episode of The Last Jedi was the nail in the coffin, the last straw. I could not take it anymore. And well, the Solo, Lando being pansexual in Solo was another thing that was really off-putting in my opinion. And I was waiting for this last episode with a lot of anxiety. Was really afraid of what was going to come here with the rise of Skywalker. And so, yeah, when I went to the cinema, yes, I was a little bit trembling. When I went to the cinema yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen here? What am I going to see? When I saw the opening crawl, I was like, Star Wars Episode 9, I had a little sigh, like, that's like, here we go. This is the last one. Finally, I can move on. I can move on in my life after that, because finally I know how it's going to. I will know how it's all going to end. And well, the opening crawl was a little bit. I mean, I knew I had read the spoilers. I saw the different trailers, so I knew that Palpatine would be coming back. By the way, guys, a spoiler alert if you haven't seen the Rise of Skywalker. This is a review that is going to include some spoilers, so be aware of that if you haven't seen the I was gonna say the Last Jedi. If you haven't seen the Rise of Skywalker and you want to be spoiled, maybe it's time now to leave this video. Otherwise, if you don't mind, then you can stick with me. That's okay. So, well, we actually start this time. We're starting with the information that apparently Emperor Palpatine is back, and people know that he's back because he has been sending transmission across the galaxies, telling people to surrender to the First Order. Otherwise they would just die. Typical good old Palpatine fashion here, and this apparently infuriates Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren thought that he was the man now. Kylo Ren thought that he was the man in charge, that he was the most powerful man in the galaxy, and it turns out that this was all an illusion. Palpatine was in fact pulling the strings from behind, and this makes him go on a quest to try to find him. So he's looking for those devices that will allow him to find his way to the legendary home world of maybe not the Sith species, but maybe the legendary home world of the Sith cult, I would dare to say, which is where Palpatine has been hiding this whole time. apparently found a way to escape the second Death Star and go to this world called Exegol, which I think is a terrible name, by the way, because to me Exegol is the name of a football trophy. It's the name of the trophy that you win if you win the French championship of football. I'll put a picture right here. All right, yeah, that was the real Exegol to me. So I don't know where they got this name from, but it was really weird. So he's going there and eventually does find out that he has been fooled the whole time. Palpatine does tell him every voices he's heard was actually him. Those Darth Vader voices, if you remember The Force Awakens, when Kylo Ren is talking to the Darth Vader mask and telling him to speak to him, that was actually Palpatine doing that. Snoke was Palpatine. We actually do see some clones of Snoke. So it looks as if Snoke was actually some kind of puppet that Palpatine was manipulating from afar. And yeah, that is how he trained Kylo Ren. So Kylo Ren realizes from the beginning that he was actually deceived the whole time, and I think that this is going to change him for the rest of the movie. He's going to realize that maybe Luke was right, and maybe his father and Leia were also right about a lot of things. Also, so Palpatine introduces himself to Kylo Ren and basically talks also about Rey and says that Rey, Rey is actually not no one. He is he's ordering Kylo Ren to kill Rey. But obviously, there's more to that. I think that Palpatine sees that as a test. Palpatine obviously sees that whoever survives the encounter, if Kylo Ren survives the encounter, then Kylo Ren would eventually be the apprentice and take over his work. Whereas if Rey survives, then it is Rey who is going to take Kylo Ren's places and take over his work. Now, it's not really about taking over because we know that Palpatine is is the incarnation of selfishness. So Palpatine sees his death as not really his final moments. He does want to eventually live within the body of the person who will strike him down. That is his whole point. Eventually, is to train someone strong enough in the dark side so that he can take over this body and live within the person who is going to eventually strike him down. He's going to have a whole ritual dedicated to that. Eventually, later throughout the film. So we go through through some kind of jungle world. We don't know which name it is. It looks like Yavin 4, but it could probably be another world, right? Because it's the Star Wars universe. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of worlds in the Star Wars universe, so it could very well be another one. But it definitely does look like Yavin 4 to me. And we finally see Rey having some Jedi training. About time that Rey finally gets some training and gets some skills, because she was taught by the actual master and she doesn't learn it just like that, because like a Mary Sue, because that is definitely something that was off-putting to a lot of fans, including myself. So I was glad to see that here. Jedi training, which is conducted by Leia. Rest in peace, Carrie Fisher, by the way. And they used some of those old footage from The Last Jedi as well as The Force Awakens. I've read a lot of reviews saying that this does feel a little bit clunky and awkward. If you have in mind that the Carrie Fisher had indeed passed away, I think that this is the best that J.J. Abrams and Lucasfilm could do with what they had in order to continue the story here. You have to keep in mind that they had to do what they had to do with whatever they had available for that purpose. So I think that they did a superb job. That's my opinion, of course. But I did appreciate the work that they pulled here with the few rushes that they had from the previous movies. They did the best out of what they had, and to me, at least, as a viewer, it worked. the illusion was not perfect, but the illusion did work. So I liked. Of course, they build the dialogue based on the dialogue that they already had from the previous footage, that from all of those cut scenes, deleted scenes that they did not release until now. But as far as I'm concerned, I think that it did work. We also see some familiar faces. C3PO. Finally, C3PO has a lot of screen time. C3PO has a lot of dialogue. I think some of these legacy characters that we're going to see in this movie are finally going to get some of the attention that they deserve, including C3PO. I was really happy with that. I think that he was one of the highlights of the movie, in my opinion. Just like, for example, Chewbacca was one of the highlights of Solo. I think that one of the highlights of the Rise of Skywalker is C-3PO, and that was something that was really pleasant to see. He is in the center of one of the plots of the movie when they're looking for the second Wayfinder to find ways to go to Exegol, because not just Kylo Ren wants to go to Exegol, Rey eventually decides that she also needs to go there to confront and kill Palpatine, because she is the only Jedi left, apart from Leia, of course. So they go on this mission to try to find ways to go to Exegol. We discover some new worlds with some new character that some people are complaining that these were too many new characters. I did not have this impression. I have the feeling that each of these new characters did bring something to the table. Zoe Bliss, for example, a previous relationship of Poe Dameron, had her own role for later throughout the movie. Then when we go to the Endor system, not the Sanctuary Moon, I think it is another moon of the Endor system, where you have some of the remains of the Death Star 2. We meet a character called Jenna and the band of other former First Order fighters who also did rebel against the First Order, who thought that what they were doing was not right, just like Finn did. I thought that was refreshing to see that Finn was not the only one who eventually had a brain of his own and decided not to follow the atrocities that the First Order tell their people to do. I think it was nice to see that there were people within the First Order who realized that what they are doing is maybe not the right thing to do. And that's what we were seeing here. I like that very much. I'm rushing the review, of course. I want to give as least spoilers as possible, of course. But overall, the movie was not so terrible. We didn't have too much identity politics. Just at one point, Rey had this very cringy line about like he's just being an angry man or something like that. That was not necessary. I think that was the Kathleen Kennedy touch here. But that was, in my opinion, the only really annoying SJW piece that was in this movie. There was another one at the end where you have two resistance officers that barely have any screen time. There are two senior ladies that have a kiss together. Yeah, that is the LGBT plus whatever representation. That was not necessary in the movie. I think it should not have been there. But at the same time, that is like 1 second of screen time for two very minor characters that are absolutely irrelevant to the story. Was it necessary? Not. Did it bother me? I think I can be tolerant enough for that to be in the movie. I think it's actually okay. Now we're gonna talk about what I think is going to really annoy most viewers. I think most Star Wars fans is how some of the legacy characters are being treated. First, we'll start off with Lando. I think that Lando was respected. That was the Lando, the smooth Lando that also does the right thing that we had here. I was really happy with how Lando was being dealt with in this movie. and people were afraid that he would be eventually the father of some kind of people of other resistance character that we would find throughout the game. I think that was not the case. He is talking to Jenna at the end of the movie during the celebration, and Jenna says that she doesn't really know where she's from, and Lando also Lando tells her, let's find out, in a very Lando fashion. So it didn't feel like they were father and daughter, but probably Lando could see that as maybe another conquest, and I like that. I like that potential storyline here. Even though, of course, that character Jenna could have definitely been his daughter, right? But Lando was being Lando, and Lando didn't really care about his age. And to me, at least, my interpretation of the thing is that they were not father and daughter, but more like a potential new conquest for Lando, and I liked that very much. How was Palpatine treated? Unfortunately, there was not a lot of screen time. I really wish that we had more screen time for Palpatine. I really wished that we had an explanation as of how he got there. Unfortunately, this is something that we're gonna have with comic books and the novelization of the movie. I think that's a shame. I think that's a shame. But again, the movie is lasting for 2 hours and 21 minutes. That is a really long time. I think that is actually the longest Star Wars movie, or maybe the second longest after The Last Jedi. So there's only so much that they could tell. And at the same time, the movie doesn't feel like like a drag like The Last Jedi. I think that was what I was looking at my watch all the time during The Last Jedi. I was like, oh my gosh, how long is this gonna last? How long do we still have left? It didn't feel boring at all in the in this movie. In fact, I was like, oh gosh, it's already the end. I didn't see time flowing as long as it did during The Last Jedi. So that was a very good time, a very good thing. I did enjoy myself during the movie, so found that really positive. Now, of course, the ending is going to be a little bit controversial for some. I totally understand that. The fact that it is Rey who destroys Palpatine, I think, is a mistake. It should have been Kylo Ren, in my opinion. But at the same time, all the Skywalkers are gone. So we are having really this transition. They want to really have this sense of closure here. So we're having this transition where where it is the end of the prophecy. It is the end of the chosen one line. Rey is the granddaughter of Palpatine. Palpatine killed his own children because he saw them as weaklings. And however, he did see the potential in Rey, was hoping for Rey to be his potential successor and conduit for his future endeavors, where his spirit would get in the body of Rey. Does it work? Well, eventually Rey decides to be who she is and not who her grandfather is. She is getting I wouldn't say the blessing of the Skywalkers as they become Force ghosts, but she decides that she is who she is. The Skywalkers do see that she is not her grandfather, that she has her man of her own, that she is the master of her own destiny. Her grandfather Palpatine Sheev is not the master of her destiny, and that is how she eventually becomes a Skywalker. So and we see that with the last scenes. The last scene is going to be quite controversial, but I think that the ending was actually fitting. Rey rejects her lineage as a Palpatine. She pays an homage to the people who accepted her, the Skywalkers, both Luke and Leia. She goes back to Tatooine, borrows what is left of them, their lightsabers, creates her new one with a brand new color that shows that maybe they are moving on from from the actual Jedi Order, which only had red, not red, ooh, which only had green, blue, and eventually one purple lightsaber. They're getting this yellow here. Probably starting a new order with a new dogma that is probably going to be for more stories in the future. But as she eventually declares herself Rey Skywalker, she doesn't do it immediately. She's actually seeing the Force ghosts of Leia. She's seeing the Force ghost of Luke all together. And they are nodding to her. They are saying, yes, you are a Jedi. We are accepting you as our own. You are not. You don't deserve to be a Palpatine. If you want to be, one of us, then you have our blessing because you have that heart. You are kind-hearted. Um, you have that you have what it takes to be one of us. She's accepted as one of their own, and adopted as almost like the daughter that they didn't have. So I could see this is how I accept that. I am not as extreme as some of the other people who say, oh no, she should not have been she's a Mary Sue and she should not have been a Skywalker. I'm not that closed minded. I can personally accept that ending. I think that it was done well, and I think that that it is a fitting end, in my opinion, to this whole saga. I think that we can all move on. Personally, there were. I'm not saying that the movie is great. For example, I didn't like the way spaceships were being handled. I didn't like at the beginning of the movie where they were hyperspace hopping from one city to another. How the hell is that even possible? I did not like that at all. I didn't like that the fact that the final battle at the end was overlooked. We didn't see any ship to ship capital. Ship to ship capital ship combats. None of that was here. All of these this huge armada from this, it's a civilian armada. That's what the First Order's officers do say. These are the people that are actually here to fight and resist the First Order. I thought that was cool, but at the same time, we didn't see any of that. We just saw the Force storm created by Palpatine taking down those ships, but we didn't actually see the combat between the Final Order. That's how they call it, the Final Order ships and the civilian uprising. I really wish that we could have had at least 5 more minutes of space combat here, showing how people were fighting and resisting against the return of Palpatine. I think that this could have been a little bit more interesting. But overall, I do believe that it was an enjoyable movie, unlike The Last Jedi, unlike The Phantom Menace as well. Whereas, of course, The Phantom Menace is not as bad as The Last Jedi, but people are going to saying, I can see reviews, people are saying that it's a terrible movie, people walked out. I think it was not that bad. I personally enjoyed it. I think was it better than any movies of the original trilogy? Of course not. Was it better than The Force Awakens? I think it was. It was not a carbon copy of any other movie. They did take some risks, but I think that in the end it pays off and it concludes the saga in the best way that Disney could do it. Is it the best way that it could have been? No. Is it? I think the best way that George Lucas could have done? Well, unfortunately, no. But it could have been worse. It could have been worse, I think. I know some people are going to have a problem with Rey being a Skywalker. What else could they have done with Rey? So yeah. I think as far as I'm concerned, I was very critical with Disney Star Wars. I think as far as I'm concerned, I'm ready to bury the hatchet. And we'll see what the future entails. I was glad that there was not too much cringe in the movie, not too much SJW BS in the movie. There was a little bit of them, but I think that it didn't really matter in the end. So that is my review of The Last Jedi, a pretty long one to be sure, but a welcome one, I hope. Hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry about the long video. Sorry about the non-Star Citizen video. I know that this channel is mostly about Star Citizen, but not just. So yeah, I think that you should watch the movie. If you like Star Wars, don't boycott it. It's not that bad, in my opinion. It's not The Last Jedi bad. It's not Empire Strikes Back great either, but it's not a bad movie either, in my opinion. All right, guys, don't forget to hit that like button and that subscribe button if you want to see more content. This is the Eradicator. I'm signing out.